Have you ever felt kind of stuck with manifestation? Like, you know what you want, right? Maybe it's a career shift or finding real connection or just, more ease in your day-to-day life. But the usual methods, the vision boards you spend hours on, the affirmations you repeat over and over, they just feel like they're hitting some kind of wall, like you're pushing this really heavy door and it's just stuck. Well, what if the way forward wasn't about pushing harder at all? What if it was about making a sort of fundamental energetic leap? Imagine connecting with a version of yourself who's already living that reality you want, and somehow intentionally bringing that future version, that energy, into your present moment. That's the core of this really powerful and honestly pretty fascinating idea called quantum jumping as a tool for transformation. And it's something we're definitely hearing more about lately. So today, we're going to do a deep dive into this whole concept. We're drawing on insights and practices from Max Westerly. He's an author, an expert with decades in this field, and someone whose own life and the lives of people he's worked with were really transformed by these principles. Our mission here is to unpack the main ideas, what quantum jumping actually is, a little bit about the thinking behind it, and importantly, some practical methods Westerly talks about for actually doing it. We want you to get a real feel for how this approach works, according to the source material, and maybe how you could start exploring it yourself. Oh, and as we jump into this, just remember, if you're looking for even more depth, really practical steps on how to make quantum jumping work for you, there's a link in the description to a video that goes into much more detail. Definitely check that out.
Okay, so before we jump into the quantum part, let's just quickly ground ourselves in manifestation itself. As Max Westerly puts it, it's basically about consciously bringing what you desire into your actual physical experience. It really boils down to that principle that your inner world, your thoughts, beliefs, feelings, your whole energetic vibe directly shapes your outer reality. You know the saying, what you think about, you bring about. That's the essence of it. It suggests this deep link between your consciousness and the world you experience.
Right, and I think that's exactly where the frustration can creep in for people. We might be thinking about abundance, maybe visualizing it like crazy, but if deep down there's this limiting belief hanging around or a feeling of not being worthy or just that old scarcity mindset, well, it can feel like all those efforts are just slamming into that subconscious block. The energy isn't quite lining up.
Precisely. Traditional methods, they're valuable, absolutely. Vision boards, affirmations, they work for many. But sometimes that deep-seated programming, that ingrained identity of this is just who I am, this is all that's possible for me, it creates resistance. And Max Westerly suggests that this is where quantum jumping offers potentially a different angle, a way to maybe sidestep some of that resistance by focusing less on attracting something external and more on becoming someone different internally.
Okay, I like that distinction. So let's get into it then. What is quantum jumping in this context? How does Westerly define it?
Well, as it's laid out in the source material, quantum jumping is essentially shifting your point of consciousness, your awareness, to a parallel version of yourself, a version who has already achieved what you want or is already living the reality you desire. The idea draws inspiration, as Westerly discusses, from certain interpretations of quantum physics. Specifically, the idea that maybe, just maybe, multiple versions of you exist simultaneously across different possibilities, different timelines, or parallel realities.
Parallel realities.
Huh? Yeah, it's a mind-bending concept, but importantly, it's not about physically teleporting, vanishing from here and appearing somewhere else. It's described as a leap in consciousness, an energetic alignment, really. The practice is all about intentionally connecting with that other version of you, the one who's already thriving, healthy, successful, whatever it is for you. And through that connection, you effectively start to collapse the energetic distance between where you are now and where they are.
Okay, so let me see if I've got this. Instead of trying to build your dream house brick by brick in this reality, you're kind of identifying a version of you where the house is already built, it's perfect, and you're figuring out how to energetically step into their life, into their shoes.
That's a great way to put it. Exactly. Yeah. It's a shift in focus. You move from trying to manifest what you want to embodying who you already are, just in a different potential reality. And the idea is once you consciously align with that version, their mindset, their feelings, their beliefs, their whole energy signature, your current reality starts to kind of reorganize itself to match that new internal frequency. You start operating differently.
Okay, that makes sense. What about the science part? You mentioned quantum physics. How deep do we need to go there?
Right, so Westerly does touch on concepts from quantum physics, but it's really important to frame this correctly. This is presented as an interpretative application for personal growth. It's not a physics experiment. The core ideas borrowed are simplified for this purpose. First, there's the idea that at the tiniest scales, reality isn't fixed until it's observed. subatomic particles existing in this cloud of possibilities, quantum superposition, where they're potentially everywhere and nowhere until measured.
That reminds me of the double slit experiment, right? Where just observing changes whether particles act like waves or distinct points.
Exactly, that's the classic example often used. It hints that maybe consciousness plays a role in collapsing possibilities into one specific outcome. And then there's the many worlds interpretation. This is a theoretical idea in physics suggesting that every time a quantum event happens with multiple possibilities, the universe actually splits. So in that model, there are countless parallel universes and countless versions of you, each having made different choices, living out different realities.
Right. Okay.
So Westerly takes these really complex, mind-bending scientific ideas and uses them as a framework, a way to understand how it might be possible to access those other versions of you and their realities. It's described as a kind of fusion drawing inspiration from science, but mixing it with intuition and spiritual principles. It's a model for consciousness and potential, not hard physics.
Got it. So the takeaway for someone listening isn't that you need a PhD in quantum mechanics. It's more about being open to the possibility that reality and your identity might be more flexible than we usually think. That maybe these other versions exist and you can actually choose which one to resonate with and step into.
That's exactly it. It's about suspending disbelief just enough to play with the potential. Instead of feeling like you're pushing a boulder uphill trying to pull something towards you. Quantum jumping, as it's presented here, is more like identifying the you who's already standing at the top of the hill and figuring out how to align your energy to step onto their path.
Okay, conceptually that clicks. It's an internal shift, connecting with a different vibe, a different version of yourself.
Yeah.
But how do you actually do that? Because the source material isn't just theory, right? It talks about practical methods. Let's dive into those, the real how-to for someone starting out.
Absolutely. And Westerly really emphasizes consistent, simple practices. These aren't meant to be complicated rituals, but daily ways to build that connection and embody the state you want.
Okay, first one up sounds almost too simple, the mirror technique.
It does sound simple, but according to the source, it's incredibly powerful. Basically, you stand in front of a mirror, you look right into your own eyes, not with judgment, but just making a connection. Then you state your intention clearly. Something like, I am now connecting with the version of me who is living a life full of vibrant health and energy, or maybe who attracts financial abundance easily and joyfully. Whatever fits your desire.
Okay, and then what? Just stare intently.
No, the magic is in the next step. You spend a few minutes actively embodying that version of you. How does that successful, happy, healthy version stand? Maybe their shoulders are back, a slight smile. What's their energy feel like? Is it calm confidence? Is it bubbling enthusiasm? You physically and energetically step into that feeling, that posture. You might even say a few things as them, feeling the emotions they'd feel. The whole point is to bridge that energetic gap, to literally feel what it's like to be that version. That starts reprogramming your subconscious, making it feel real and familiar now.
Interesting. So it's way beyond just saying affirmations. It's like an active, energetic role play to really internalize the feeling of it.
Exactly. Feeling it in your body, in your energy field. Then there's quantum scripting. This builds on the popular scripting practice, but with that specific quantum twist.
Okay, so normal scripting is usually writing about your desired future. But in the present tense, like it's already happening, how is quantum scripting different?
The key difference is who is doing the writing. You write from the perspective of that alternate self who is already living that desired reality. You're not just describing the goal, you are the person living it, journaling about your day. The source suggests a prompt like, I am so incredibly grateful now that I've stepped into being the version of myself who described the core state, like runs a thriving, joyful business, everything feels so aligned. Just today, I experienced details, something that would happen in that reality.
Ah, okay. So you're actually journaling from that other timeline, describing the little details of a normal day from their perspective, the good stuff, the everyday stuff, what they think, how they feel, what actions they take.
Precisely that. You immerse your consciousness in that reality by creating a detailed narrative from inside it. Doing this consistently helps convince your subconscious mind that this other reality is already your experience. It makes the unfamiliar feel familiar, which helps your current reality shift.
Okay, now the two-chair method. This one sounds, well, a bit unusual. How does that work?
It definitely feels a bit different when you first try it, but many find it brings amazing clarity. You literally set up two chairs facing each other. You sit in chair one as your current self. You state your goal or maybe a challenge you're facing. Then you physically get up, walk over, and sit in chair two. And as you sit in chair two, you consciously step into the identity, the energy of the version of you who has already achieved that goal or already solved that problem. Then, from chair two, speaking as that achieved version, you answer the questions or address the concerns raised by your current self in chair one. What decisions did they make? What did they learn along the way? What advice does that future achieved self have for the you sitting over there? It's a structured way to tap into your own deeper wisdom, access through the perspective of already having succeeded.
Huh. So you're basically having a conversation with your own future successful self, accessing insights that might be blocked by your current worries or limitations.
That's the core idea. It can often bring up surprising solutions or perspectives you hadn't considered. It's like opening a direct line to the wisdom you already hold, just filtered through the lens of completion.
Okay, next up, visualization with frequency matching. Now, we hear a lot about visualization in manifestation circles. How does Westerly's take differ?
This approach emphasizes going beyond just seeing a mental picture. The absolute crucial element here is feeling the frequency. So you get into a relaxed state, maybe meditative. You visualize, yes, but you imagine stepping into that desired life. Maybe picture walking through a doorway into that reality. And once you're there in your mind, you engage all your senses. What do you see, hear, smell, taste, touch? But most importantly, you tune into the feeling. You actively ask, how does this version of me feel living this life? Is their baseline peaceful, confident, joyful, grateful? You identify that core emotional state, that frequency.
And then you try to hold on to that feeling, anchor it somehow.
Yes, exactly. You deliberately anchor that specific emotional state into your physical body. You might use a physical cue, like touching your heart, or just consciously breathe that feeling deep into your cells. The source material really hammers this home. The emotion is the secret sauce. You're not just observing the movie, you are embodying the energetic signature of that reality. You have to become the feeling of the life you desire and learn to carry that frequency with you out of the visualization.
That really makes sense. Like it tracks, like energetically. If you're vibrating at the frequency of success or joy, you're more likely to align with experiences that match. Okay, last one. Acting as if, but authentically. This isn't about being fake, is it?
No, absolutely not. It's not about, say, pretending you're rolling in cash when your bank account is empty. It's much subtler. It's about embodying the energy, the mindset, and making decisions from the perspective of that future successful self, starting right now. It's about asking yourself throughout the day, okay, what would the version of me who has already achieved my goal do in this situation? How would they handle this email? What choice would they make right now? What would be their priority?
So it's about those small moment-to-moment choices and actions, guided by the perspective of that identity you're stepping into.
Exactly. It's a constant, gentle recalibration of your energy and your actions. Each small decision made from that higher perspective signals to your subconscious, and maybe to the universe, that you are already operating from that desired state. It's the daily, lived embodiment of the identity you're choosing. Not faking circumstances, but authentically living from a shifted internal place. And this really circles back to that core principle woven through all these methods. Max Westerly's central message, the big takeaway, is often stated as, you don't manifest what you want, you manifest who you are.
And that's where quantum jumping, as described here, really fits in. By deliberately choosing to align with that future version of yourself, the version who is the embodiment of your desire, you're fundamentally shifting who you are on an energetic level.
Right. Which, according to the source, is why these shifts can sometimes happen much faster than our logical minds expect. You start thinking, feeling, and acting from the frequency of that desired reality.
Yeah.
And your external world starts to reflect that internal state back to you.
And Westwood makes it sound manageable, too, saying, you don't need to do all these things perfectly right away. Just start small. Pick one or two methods that feel good, that resonate. Consistency is the key, right? That daily connection.
The more familiar that desired identity and reality become in your mind and body, the more natural it feels to fully embody it. And that final thought from the material, which I find really powerful, is this. The jump, the shift. It isn't something that happens out there somewhere, like some external magic trick. It happens in you. And the moment you truly consciously decide to make that internal shift to align with that other version of yourself, that's when the process really begins.
Wow. Okay, so we've taken quite a journey today into the world of quantum jumping for manifestation, drawing from Max Westerly's work. We've looked at what it means, the kind of framework behind it, and some really practical tools. The mirror technique, quantum scripting, two chairs, frequency matching, acting as if.
And that central theme that it's really about embodying an identity that already exists as a possibility, it does shift the whole perspective on how manifestation might work. It definitely leaves you with a pretty potent question to mull over. How much of your current reality is simply a direct reflection of the identity, the beliefs, the energetic frequency you're holding on to right now? And what new possibilities might open up if you consciously choose to align with a different version of yourself, one who already has and is everything you desire.
It certainly offers a fresh lens on our own potential and maybe our power to choose. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive today. We really hope this exploration of quantum jumping has given you some new ideas, maybe sparked some curiosity, and perhaps even inspired you to experiment with these fascinating practices for yourself.